Venus and Aquarius people are not serious. They are not serious. They hate commitment. Hi, my name is Simone and welcome to my channel, Solar Simone Astrology, where I explore the intersection of pop culture and astrology. Today, I'm going to be discussing Love is Blind Season 4 and the astrology of it, including the astrology of all the castmates, the couples, and the now singles. Okay, let's start with hands down the best couple. I think, to me personally, I think they're better than Lauren and Cameron, though I do like Lauren and Cameron. Tiffany and Brett, like literally the pinnacle of Black love. Like I literally fell in love with their entire relationship. Like they're the only ones who really had scenes that would make me like cry. So I'm just gonna get into like what I observed from like the two of them and then also their charts. If I'm looking down at, it's because I have my iPad here and I have this really cool graphic. I'm gonna try to see if I can like put it like, you know, somewhere in the screen when I'm editing, which I'm gonna call it by Astrology Island. So this is an Instagram account run by this girl named Zoe, and she actually has a really good Substack where she basically does the astrology of reality TV in written form. And I was like, oh, that's really, really cool. So I've only read some of like what she wrote, but she's the one who gathered the information for all their charts and stuff. So I'm taking from that. But for the most part, all of these different astrology observations I have are completely my own. So let's talk about Tiffany and Brett. So let's talk about Tiffany first. So Tiffany has a Sagittarius sun, and then a moon in Gemini. So that's really interesting because she has a full moon baby. I'm also a full moon baby. Okay, the sun in Sagittarius I could see just even like the way that like Tiffany's friends were describing her. Like Tiffany seems like a very like fun loving person, and there's actually a clip of like, I think The Cut recently did a YouTube video of all the married couples and kind of like detailed them. And so like with Tiffany, one of her complaints about Brett was that he's too rigid and doesn't like go with the flow as much, which I'll get into in a bit. And in my head I was like, that's such a Sagittarius thing to say. Like that's exactly like, you know, I feel like Sagittarius, they're a mutable sign. Even having like her moon in Gemini, it's just very like, you know what I mean? Yeah, and then also having her moon in Gemini, to me, I mean, we didn't really see that much, but to me, I feel like Moon and Gemini tend to be like pretty like chatty individuals, very like, you know, like I said, bright, bubbly, very like social. And I can already kind of see that like, you know, Tiffany does seem a little bit like as of a social person, like she's good at making friends. Like she just has a bright, like infectious energy that everybody really seems to love. And I feel like that really categorizes like those two signs. She also has Mercury and Sagittarius. Like I said, this also kind of fits in with her comment. Like Mercury and Sagittarius tend to be very like big picture, don't really like, can't really handle details very much, which also kind of makes sense about how she was stressed about the wedding. Like, I mean, I'm sure that weddings are very detail oriented projects, you know? And so especially when you're getting to like down to like the nitty gritty. And so I can imagine that was very stressful because like I said, Mercury and Sagittarius tend to be like very big picture, long-term thinker. Like Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is a very expansive planet. And so it's really hard to kind of like, for Jupiter or Jupiter ruled signs to do like deal with like the quote unquote nitty gritty. So that's how I see her Mercury in Sagittarius. She also has Venus in Scorpio and Mars in Libra. So it's really cute because she has what we call like a mutual reception. Now there's a lot of debates among astrologers about, you know, if two signs are next to each other, they can't really see each other, like they don't make an aspect. So it's hard to see if they like mutually receive. But basically a mutual reception is basically where you have like one planet. So for example, Mars traditionally rules over Scorpio, right? But here it's in Libra, right? Which it doesn't really do super well in. Then you have Venus, which traditionally rules over Libra and now is in Scorpio. So it's basically like they've traded signs or they've traded houses or they've traded like even outfits or whatever. That's kind of the energy of like a mutual reception where it's all like basically kind of if you and your bestie were like, hey, can I swap houses with you like for a week? The only difference with this is that they can't really see each other and they can't really see what each other is doing. So that may prevent them from being able to help each other out as much. Basically, her Venus in Scorpio is ruling over her Mars in Libra, and her Mars in Libra is ruling over her Venus in Scorpio. But to kind of summarize this energy, okay, so Venus and Scorpio, it's no surprise that Tiffany took this seriously. Like Venus and Scorpio do not play. They're very much like, I give you my, beating, warm, still heart out of my chest to my lover type of vibes. They're very serious about commitment, relationships, very much like not wanting to, give their all or their most vulnerable selves to another person because they're so committed. Like they're very much the definition of a ride or die. Like they will stick with you to the end, and it's very hard for them to get out of or like end relationships. And so that kind of makes sense. She took this seriously. And when she even talked about how she's all like, I'm not marrying just to marry, or it's not that I just want to get married. It's like, yeah, I do want to get married, but the whole reason she was doing this the whole reason Tiffany is doing this experiment is because she wants to find the one. Like she wants to find the guy of her dreams, or her soulmate as she called it. That's very important, and that very much gives Venus and Scorpio energy. And so I could see, like, I think during the show she was like 36, 37 now, and I could very much see her, maybe when she was younger, really committing to some, guys who weren't worth anything. And now finally in Brett, she's really found someone she can really give her heart to. And then finally, she has, Mars and Libra. I don't know. I can kind of see that energy a little bit. It's a little bit more intuitive. I mean, obviously I don't know Tiffany personally, but Mars and Libra, they don't tend to be very like assertive or like good with conflict. But they're also good mediators. So I also feel like, for example, like when Tiffany texted Brett being like, hey, Jackie didn't show up to her dress fitting. To me, that felt very Mars and Libra actually. And the diplomacy of like, I don't know if she was good with Jackie or how close she was, but just being able to kind of like relay or convey information, just to kind of like smooth everything out and to kind of help Marshall in a bit. So I don't know, I feel like that was really nice. Okay, moving on to Brett. And then I'm also going to talk about like their compatibility together, but I just want to talk about them individually first. And then, yeah. Okay, so Brett has a sun in Scorpio. Nice. He has a moon in Aries. Okay, so talk about this. So Brett has a lot of Scorpio in his chart, but to talk about like the sun in Scorpio, like I said, I have a lot of Scorpio sun friends, very serious, very loyal, just very nice, like water sign energy. Like I know Scorpios have like a bad rep, but for the most part, I think they're just like really intense people, and they're some of the most loyal people you will ever meet. Like once they're cool with you and once they, trust you, because that's a big thing. Like Scorpios aren't really that trusting. Then you have them. That's period. You know what I mean? He also has a moon in Aries. So it's really funny just like looking at all this chart. He's very, very Martian. Like I think from his big 5 or 6 big 5, it's all like I think 4 out of those 5 planets that I'm going to talk about are all ruled by Mars. So this guy, so when I see that, I'm like, okay, this is a guy who potentially could be very confident, very assertive, very knows when to strike, like type of energy. And it's kind of funny because I guess the only time we kind of see him get like angry, quote unquote, is when, doing the Groomzilla moment when his pants were fitting right. And even then, like, I could tell this is a guy who, if he has had anger issues or anything like that, he's had to like mature over it and knows how to like take control out of situations. Like we're all human, we all get irritated, but he was like, okay, this is unacceptable. This shouldn't happen. Let me go fix it. And let me go, do the damn thing and, drive however far to get this tailor. You know what I mean? He basically was calm even amongst him having one of the most important nights or days of his life be ruined. So I think that really says something about his character, because he wasn't throwing anything, he wasn't yelling, like, yes, he was irritated, yes, he was upset, but I really think he handled it in a relatively respectful way. Okay, so he also has Mercury in Scorpio, Venus in Scorpio, and Mars in Aquarius. So talk about like Mercury a little bit more. So I'm kind of curious about how like Brett's and Tiffany's communication is. Like obviously it seemed pretty good, but the Mercury in Scorpio, okay, all of this kind of makes sense as to why Brett came to get to heart when Tiffany fell asleep. Because like, even when he talked about how his family doesn't say I love you, or they're not really open like verbally with their expressions, that's very Mercury and Scorpio, because keeping stuff like close to the chest, not really trusting people, not really wanting to be vulnerable. But the thing about Scorpios is that even though they're not outwardly vulnerable, they're the most caring people like on this planet. Like they care so much. They just are like, you know, nobody can catch me slipping type of vibes. And it's just really hilarious to see. Yeah, so the Mercury in Scorpio, I imagine that he's potentially someone who's a little bit slow and like more measured with his words, or, you know, thinks about his words a little bit more. Also very investigative, maybe asks like really intense or deep, interesting kind of questions. Also, when they do trust you, not totally afraid to go deep, you know? And I feel like that's just like, you can see even when he was talking about his rough childhood to Tiffany, like that to me screams Mercury in Scorpio. So similar to Tiffany, he has Venus in Scorpio, which I think kind of alludes to that maybe he's had a similar romantic pattern. Like he's talked about how he's dated obviously a lot of women or like people, but you know, never really found that he was like with the one. And he also mentioned how he feels like with Tiffany, he can be his like true self, or maybe Tiffany said that about him. But I feel like that's very much like the Venus and Scorpio type of energy, where it's all like you feel like you found someone who you can truly be your quote unquote full self with, because Scorpio is such a guarded energy. And then we have all of this being ruled by a Mars in Aquarius, which is very interesting. So this kind of shows that he's a little bit, okay, so Mars in Aquarius is like a very interesting kind of like placement. This probably shows that he's a little bit unique in like what he does, or basically kind of like marches to the beat of his own drum. I think Brett seems like a person who's not afraid of like living and being his true authentic self, and also kind of shows how he's taken unusual pathways to kind of get to like where he's been. Like the fact that he never went to college, and that he made his career through like, you know, posting his images on like Instagram or online is like really impressive, and like really shows his own specific drive and dedication, especially since Aquarius is a Saturn ruled sign. So I thought that was all really interesting. Now I'm going to talk about their synastry or their compatibility together. Okay, so first off, since I just kind of got done speaking about Brett's Mars sign, let me talk about their Mars compatibility. So Tiffany has a Mars in Libra and he has a Mars in Aquarius, which is trine each other, which basically means that they kind of understand the way that they do their actions, or the way that they kind of are like, you know, aggressive or ambition. This also kind of bodes pretty well to have like a good, you know, sex life, and to be able to kind of explore those things together. They're probably pretty relatively compatible in that. The other thing I'll mention is that they also have both Venus and Scorpio. That really shows that they're both very dedicated and very committed to each other. Yeah, and I really love that, because having a Venus and Scorpio, I know can be a very, I don't want to be like isolating experience, but it can be a very intense experience. And I think sometimes Venus and Scorpio people can feel like nobody really understands them or the way that they do love, especially the intensity or the obsessive nature of their love. So I think them having the same Venus sign really shows about how they're able to like instantly connect and only really have eyes for each other. Very Venus and Scorpio type of vibes. Final thing I'll say is that Brett has a moon in Aries, and Tiffany has Sun in Sagittarius. This is really nice, the Sun trine moon. Anytime you have like, you know, the two luminaries, which is like the Sun and the moon, making a nice aspect to each other, especially a trine, that's always something that you really want, and that always bodes pretty well for the relationship in terms of like you guys can really understand, you know, each other's like drives or vitality or emotions. So basically like the emotional aspect of Brett, like how he is inside, really matches Tiffany's vitality, drive, ego, and outward energy. So I think that's really, really sweet. Okay, let's move on to Chelsea and Kwame. Imagine my surprise when Chelsea, of course, says yes to the altar, but so does that man Kwame too. Which I was like, bruh, like, cut the cameras. You can't be serious right now. But he was dead serious, and at the reunion, we found that they've been happily married for a year. I mean, to be honest, at the reunion, they did kind of convince me, but I did kind of always get the feeling that Chelsea was always his second choice, and that, like, you know, he really wanted to be with Micah, or just really anybody else. Like, he didn't seem like he was totally committed to each other, and like, unlike Brett and Tiffany, I don't really feel like they were able to accurately convey their love or their emotions with each other. Like, one thing that I really liked about Brett and Tiffany is the way that they were able to articulate, like, okay, this is why I love this person. in very clear, concise like language, and also stuff that felt unique, because I feel like at first Kwame was just like, oh, I like Chelsea because I like how much she validates me or how good she makes me feel. And it's just like, what? Like, you get that from anybody. And like, even the way that Chelsea talks about Kwame, like, there's certain things where I'm just kind of all like, I don't know, like, it just sounds like you want a husband. Like, it just sounds like they both wanted to like fulfill a need and not actually that they were like looking for a person. That's why, once again, I'm a Brett and Tiffany fan, because they were here looking for like love and like for a soulmate and not just a person to get married to, which is not really what I feel like I can totally say about Chelsea, and also kind of Kwame for a little bit. But let me just talk about their charts individually and then talk about them together. Okay, so Chelsea actually is pretty Venetian, which makes sense because she like loves wearing pink and like her whole house is pink. I mean, I love pink too, but like no shade to Chelsea, but I did not like the pink that was dominating her house. Like, I just like she was choosing like ugly shades of pink. Like, you know, maybe I don't know, maybe I don't have a right to say that, but that's just my own personal feelings about it. But yeah, so she has a sun in Taurus, which is also makes sense because, you know, I think her birthday probably was at the end of April, which is kind of when they said that like either the weddings were or like when, you know, they were out of the pods or whatever. So anyway, so happy Taurus season, happy birthday, Chelsea. Anyway, so she has sun in Taurus, and then she has moon in Libra. So like I said, very Venetian qualities. This also makes sense why Chelsea was so desperate. I hate to use that word, but it's true, desperate for partnership and for like having a husband. What I know about the moon and Libra people that I know, they're always in relationships. Like, they're always cuffed up. Like, they really cannot be alone. And I obviously don't know that about her because she obviously was single for a while, but it just makes a lot of sense. And even when she talked about how she's like, I can't eat dinner alone, I'm always FaceTiming my friends, and it's like, it's not wrong to want companionship or whatever, etc. But also, like, a husband is not the only way to like get that companionship. And also, marriage and like having a husband can go south very quickly. Like, literally just look at any of those like Reddit relationship posts or threads. Like, hello. Yeah, so she has moon in Libra, she has Mercury in Aries, so this makes a lot of sense, just the way that she would talk to people, or even like, and I just say this in a very positive way, like, I loved how direct Chelsea is as a person. And even Kwame mentioned, like, she just speaks her mind, like, she's very like, you know, says what she needs to say about it, like, when it comes to stuff, like, basically doesn't mince words, like, she's very, you know, I said what I said, I mean what I mean type of person, which I love that. And then she also has Venus in Gemini and Mars in Cancer. So yeah, the Venus in Gemini kind of like ruling both her sun and her moon. I don't know, I feel like this really kind of describes like her personality, about how like, even as a Taurus, and like, obviously she's like, you know, strong-willed and stubborn, she is relatively a pretty gregarious person, like very social, very nice. Like, I mean, out of everybody, out of all the women, like, I think Chelsea on the internet, like, a lot of people really talk about how they did like her as her personality and like just like who she kind of like was. And then also like a Mars in Cancer. It's kind of funny because at the time of me recording this video, Mars is actually in Cancer right now. She's having her Mars return. Yeah, so Mars in Cancer, they're very like family oriented, which we kind of saw like when we met Chelsea's family, like how close she is with them. Also very like family, especially in regards to women, which also makes sense when you look at Chelsea's family of like majority women, or at least all the people who that were seen on camera or we were talking to were women. And so it kind of makes sense. And it also like Mars and Cancer also protect women. They fight for their family. They're very big defenders and protectors. Like, that's very much the Mars and Cancer energy. Even though Mars traditionally does not do that well in Cancer, because it's the opposite of Mars' exaltation of Capricorn. Okay, so let's talk about Kwame's chart. Okay, so Kwame has an Aries Sun, Gemini Moon, Aries Mercury, Aquarius Venus, and Aquarius Mars. All of which I find very fascinating. So Kwame, I don't even know how to talk about this dude. To be honest, like the entire time that he was on the show, he sounded like he worked for HR or like for corporate. Like, all of his words felt carefully chosen. Even his laugh felt like that laugh that, you know, you give white people when you want them to go away. Like, that's just kind of like the vibes that he was always kind of giving to me. But you know, having Aries Sun, he is like, you know, a person, when I see Aries Suns, I see someone who potentially is a little bit impulsive, but also someone who is relatively assertive and like knows they're in power and knows what they want and knows exactly how to go after it. The Gemini moon, like I said, he seems relatively gregarious, just like Chelsea, in terms of like a very like social person. Seems a guy like who's never met a stranger, or who can very much, you know, be charming or charm other people relatively easy. He has an Aries Mercury, which again, which would make him, like I said, a relatively assertive like communicator, because even when he is like fighting or talking to Chelsea, he was kind of able to be like, okay, no, like bop bop bop, this is what I believe, or this is kind of like what's going on in my head and all that stuff. And I feel like that's very like important and interesting. And then he also has an Aquarius Venus and Aquarius Mars. The Aquarius Venus makes a lot of sense about just the vibes of how he was going on in the pods. Also, Aquarius Venus makes a lot of sense about why he was like boo-hoo about commitment. Like even Chelsea had to be like, oh, do you want to settle down? Because it sounded like he didn't really want to settle down. Like just all the things that he was talking to her, and all the things about like, oh, our married life is gonna be like this, or blah 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 like this. And it's just kind of all like, I'm sorry, but you have to trick Aquarius Venuses into getting into a relationship. Like that's just the only way that it's gonna go down, because these are like Aquarius anything, but especially Venus and also as Mars, very non-committal, like very much like they don't want to actively, like the idea of them like, you know, signing a piece of paper saying that you're legally bound to this person for like ever or till death is insane to them. Like they hate that vibe. And obviously, you know, Kwame at this point is like in his 30s, so I'm sure that he's like obviously matured and grown up. But even the fact that he talked about how he would travel like internationally and be out of the country for like 6 months at a time and all sorts of stuff, like to me, like that nomadic nature makes it seem to me like that he's not used to having like a home base, or to like a person he has to like be responsible to or committed to. Actually, funnily enough, from this chart, they're actually, Chelsea and Kwame are actually really astrologically compatible. So they both have the same Mercury in Aries, which bodes pretty well for communication. The only thing I'm afraid of with that is I feel like fights could probably get really intense just because of that Aries energy. And then, okay, so he also has, you know, his Venus, Aquarius Venus, is trying Chelsea's Venus. Like I said, maybe when she was younger, Chelsea maybe was getting around, or just was a lot more fickle or open to like different types of like love situations. That's very much how I read Venus and Gemini. However, obviously now she's ready to settle down, but it's really nice that she does have that Venus and Gemini to complement his Aquarius Venus, because I think both of them like probably have that energy in them where they might want to run. And so I feel like she can keep up with him, which is what I'm saying, which is good. Yeah, those are the big things that I kind of noticed in their chart, that I think is like relatively or like pretty compatible. Oh yeah, also they have moon trine moon, which like I said, is a big indicator of couples doing well if their luminaries can see each other. So in this case, both of their moons can see each other, in the sense that he has a Gemini moon and she has a Libra moon, which is really sweet because that means that who they are inside or who they are emotionally is very complementary. Okay, let's talk about Micah and Paul. Okay, so Micah has a sun in Pisces, a moon in Libra or Scorpio. I guess it's because we don't really know her birth time. And then she also has a Mercury in Pisces, Venus in Taurus, and Mars in Pisces. So as you can tell, she actually is also really Venusian, because Pisces is the exploitation of Venus. And so I would qualify that as Venusian energy. And then, like I said, also as Venus in Taurus. I think she has a moon in Libra. I don't know, moon in Scorpio does really make a lot of sense. Yeah, also I'm sorry to say, but Libra, peak mean girl energy. Like, one of the signs that I think could really embody like Regina George, or at least one of her minions, Libra, especially moon in Libra. But it's really interesting. So I feel like the sun and Mercury in Pisces make a lot of sense to me, just like the way she would communicate, like, and also like a lot of it was, I don't know, like, I don't think she's like the best communicator. But it felt very like spacey and airy and like open, etc. Blah 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 blah. I feel like Venus and Taurus, like, I really hate to say this about Micah because I don't really think that she's like super attractive or anything, but she had all the boys in a tizzy. Like, I don't think she's ugly, but like clearly, like, and I just feel like that's very Venus and Taurus energy. A very much like, you know, grounded, but also like Taurus and just like Venetians in general, like stuff comes easily to them. Like she was able to like relatively easily get Paul and even convince him to like ditch amber relatively easily, and also similarly able to like have Kwame wrapped around her little finger. And then she also has a Mars in Pisces, which is cute because I also have a Mars in Pisces. Like I said, this is not very like, you know, easily willing to like, you know, stab a person energy, or if you're stabbing them, it's like with a play knife, I guess. Yeah, this also kind of makes sense in like the way that she kind of like talks about or handles confidence. Like, I hate to say this, but I really do think she's a manipulative person. Like, even the way she talked about and acted at the reunion, like, just irked my spirit. Like, I don't know, like, I just don't, she always tries to play the victim, and that's peak Pisces energy, like victim mentality central, to be honest. No agency at all. Okay, moving on to Paul. Okay, so Paul has his sun in Aries, moon in Virgo, Mercury in Pisces, Venus in Aries, and Mars in Pisces. Okay, so yeah, right off of the bat, the biggest thing about Paul that stands the most out is his moon in Virgo and his Mercury in Pisces. So moon in Virgo, okay, this dude was a scientist, and even the way he talks, like I was like, I mean, I don't think he was using like big words, like I'm not like Shelby, like I literally thought he was like, you know, speaking normally, or like, you know, maybe a little bit more academic sounding. And even the way he articulates his feelings and emotions is very scientific, very like mercurial, measured, steady. I feel like all of that, like even when he was just kind of all like, oh, like at the wedding, he was like, oh, well, there's like an equal probability like of things working out or not, or like there's a high risk that I'm making, like, you know, just all those types of words that he was saying. Like I found it was kind of funny and cute and endearing, but you could tell that he's very like regimented in terms of like how he's able to like express his emotions. And then also him having the Mercury in Pisces, I mean, to me, I feel like that kind of showed at the reunion when like, you know, Vanessa was asking him like, oh, what'd you mean about calling Micah like not motherly or not having that energy? And he had to like backtrack, and everybody was like, we're confused about what you're saying. To be honest, I understood what Paul was saying. Like, I don't think he was saying it in like the most clear and concise way, but I got what he was saying. But also that's peak Mercury in Pisces. Like that's just like, they like the way they communicate, like the way they think is like thoughts and feelings and blurbs and whatever. It's not in like clear-cut words. And so it's really funny that he has this tension between his like moon and his Mercury, because like they're so opposites. Like he's so analytical emotionally, but then when he's trying to communicate that, it just comes out in like a blob, you know, of information that like most people are like, what are you saying? Yeah. And then also the sun and Venus in Aries, like that just proves like how assertive, like I said, he is, and able to like stick up for himself. And like even just the way he was like, you know, standing up for himself, like one at the reunion, and then also two, I mean, a better showcase is when he was standing up to like Shelby and like Micah's friends. Like that's very Aries energy, where he was like, yeah, you know, I don't really care about y'all's opinions, like period, you know? Okay, so them together. Honestly, I think I can see Micah's chart more in the way that Paul describes Micah when he talks about how she's just like, how they see the world very differently. Like just her having a lot of that Pisces energy, and like him having that like moon in Virgo, you know what I mean? And like that kind of being very opposite. So kind of just like, you know, I think to him, I'm sure that it's pretty refreshing, especially also her having Mercury in Pisces. Like they probably communicate relatively well. Like I said, I mean, as well as Mercury in Pisces, people can communicate. Is what I'll say about that. But yeah, they also, and then also having the same Mars sign. So like I said, like in my head, I'm like, hey, they're probably communicating on similar wavelengths or levels, and they also probably have like a relatively good sex life, or are able to like enjoy each other physically. Let's talk about Marshall and Jackie. There's just so much I want to say, like just about how that all went down. I will say I am team Marshall, if that's even a thing. I do not like Jackie. I think she did him like dirt, to be honest, but let's just get into it. So let's talk about Marshall. Also, I'm not really gonna mention Joss. Like I'm gonna like, you know, probably glance, like I look at, like I've seen his chart a little bit. I'm gonna glance over that because we don't have time for that, nor do I really care. Okay, so Marshall, she has a sun in Virgo. He has a moon either in Leo or Virgo. I think it's Virgo, personally, but and then he also has a Mercury in Libra, Venus in Libra, Mars in Scorpio. But anyway, so sun in Virgo, and potentially moon in Virgo as well. This makes a lot of sense. Like just the way that he, like, you know, on their first night or whatever, like made her pancakes, like went to the farmer's market, got fresh fruit, you know, to make her a compote or whatever, etc. Had the powdered sugar, like all this other stuff. Like, okay, get it. Like I just like really love that for him, because I really was just like, it's just so clear about how he's such a service oriented like type of person. And of course that's the positive way that it manifested, but it also manifested in a negative way, in the sense that he called Jackie a project. And he doesn't have a Venus in Virgo, he has a Venus in Libra. But to me, when he said that, I was like, ooh, this is peak Venus and Virgo vibes, but just Virgo vibes in general, since he has a lot of it. In the sense of like, he very much, you know, I think a lot of his self-worth probably comes from helping other people and also helping people get, like, you know, achieve their fullest potential, which is really sad. And obviously I don't know him, of course, or whatever, but I did watch his interview with Nick Viall, like on the Viall Files, and even just when he talked about how, like, with Jackie's career, he would be like, oh, it'd be so cool if you could, like, you know, be an anesthesiologist, like maybe you should go to school for that, blah blah blah. And then even like Nick Viall had to be like, hey, that's not really your place, like you don't really know like what she wants in her life or where she's coming from. So even though he has really good intention and energy, like I definitely feel like he's very much like a I want to build my girl up type of energy. He loves that process of doing that and like helping people realize their full potential, but it's like detriment to himself. And it's all like, just as an advice to anybody spiritually, it's all like, listen, you need to be with someone who's at your level. You can't bring people up to your level, because that's just not what happens. You get dragged down to their level. They drag you to hell. And that's exactly what happened with Jackie. Like, you cannot bring someone up. They will drag you down. So yeah, then also him having Venus in Libra. I don't know, I feel like this is really cute. I don't know, I feel like Marshall, I don't think he has an idealized version of love, but just even the fact that he chose Jackie as a person, like, I don't know what was going on in his head, to be honest. But like, yeah, I don't know. That's just what Venus and Libra gives very, like, I don't know, like, they're just like hopeless romantics, or just romantics in general. Like, and I can very much see that in Marshall. So Jacqueline. Okay, so Jackie is a sun in Capricorn, moon in Pisces or Aries. I think it's in Aries, but okay. And then Mercury in Capricorn, Venus in Aquarius, and Mars in Capricorn. Okay, so Sun in Capricorn, I mean, we knew this actually because she had a big Capricorn tattoo on the back of her like neck or on her spine, which, like, okay. But anyway, but yeah, all of this, I mean, when I see this, I see someone who is very like measured, steady, and I don't know, like aggressive, but like, I don't know. This energy, especially with potentially the moon in Aries and the sun, the Mars in Capricorn, like I said, when I was explaining Mars in Cancer, like Mars is Capricorn's exaltation. This is where Mars loves to live. You know what I mean? And I just feel like from this chart, Jackie feels like a person who's out for blood, very ambitious, like knows what she wants, fights for it, and also can win the fight. Like, I mean, not that I think she's winning the fight at all now, but I'm just saying that, like, I just feel like when she attacks, she goes for blood, and she's very much like able to do that. And I feel like Marshall can keep up with her because, like, you know, she does have that like really, you know, like fierce, whatchamacallit, committed, determined energy of Capricorn. And then the Venus in Aquarius, I mean, I'll talk kind of about this, but you know, she has Venus in Aquarius, which you know, trines his Venus in Libra. Okay, one thing I'll say, I even kind of said this when I said that Kwame has a Venus in Aquarius. I'm pretty sure that's true. But regardless, okay, Venus in Aquarius people are not serious. They are not serious. They hate commitment. And I feel like maybe Kwame has grown out of this because he's probably older than Jacqueline. I think he's in his 30s, and I think Jacqueline is still like in her like mid 20s or like late 20s now. Yeah, unserious people. Like literally when Jackie was all like, when she came up to Joss at that cafe where she's all like, I want to date you, but I'm not concerned or interested in like legal marriage. I just was like, girl, why are you here? But even beyond that, that made a lot of sense because, like I said, Venus Aquarius people at like their lowest, or I don't want to say like unevolved, but at like when they're exhibiting their worst qualities, are the types of people who do not want to, like I said, commit. Like they hate, it's because they don't want to lose their freedom. Like all that like romantic stuff about like, oh, two souls become one, like you're merged. They hate that. They like their own freedom and individual expression. Like they want a companion. Like they want a people, but they want like a best friend companion who they can kind of see wherever, and then like kind of dip out when it gets too harsh or too extreme. And that's very much like the Venus and Aquarius energy. So I have to blame any of her placements for the shenanigans that Jackie is pulling. It is absolutely that Venus and Aquarius. And before you guys hate me and get all mad, I'm an Aquarius sun. I don't have a Venus in Aquarius. I have a Venus in Capricorn, but I have a bunch of Aquarius placements. So I know how evil we can be. Like when you really truly want to, we can be evil. And that's what I'll say. Not that I think Jackie's evil, but I definitely think she has a lot. Just a quick run through on Josh. He has a sun in Gemini, moon in Gemini, Mercury in Gemini, a lot of Gemini. Okay, and then also Venus and Mars in Leo. This kind of the Venus in Leo is opposite her, Jackie's Venus in Aquarius. So like I said, opposites attract, him having that Leo and that Gemini, that's peak comedian, braggadocious, and silly behavior. Like all of this, especially the moon in Gemini, that was all coming out when he's he ha whatever, and being like calling Marshall like NBA cryboy or whatever, that's just like literally the peak combination of a Gemini and a Leo combined. Like silly, goofy, and also like confident as hell. Like it's just, that's what I'll say about that. To be honest. Okay, finally I want to discuss Bliss, Zack, and Irina. Okay, so Irina has a sun in Scorpio, moon in Capricorn, Mercury in Sagittarius, Venus in Libra, and Mars in Virgo. So as we kind of all witnessed, Irina's a mean girl. Also, I didn't bring this up when I was talking about Micah, but Micah is as much of a mean girl, maybe even more worse, because she's able to get away with it. I don't like Micah. I don't support her activities, and I don't agree with everybody only focusing on Irina. I think Micah was just able to get away with it. So, but going to Irina. Okay, so that's sun in Scorpio, moon in Capricorn. To me, this kind of that combination very much gives like a very outward exterior of not giving enough, or not wanting to portray that you're cool and you're collected and above it all. Like I said, okay, Mercury and Sagittarius, I'm gonna be honest, Sagittarius they're mean. It's a mean sign. When not always, but just like Gemini, they just have that okay, first of all, Sagittarius love the truth. They just love spitting the truth. They are dedicated to the truth. Jupiter rules over truth. That's just their own thing. But the thing about it is that Sagittarius people also have no tact. They will just say stuff to you that has you be like, why did you say that? And then they'll just be like, well, I was just being honest. I don't feel Irina totally embodies that energy, but she does embody the mean girlness of just doing stuff that's just out of pocket, and you were just like, why did you do that? That's just kind of weird. And also just the whole laughing at other people's pain. I don't think obviously all Sagittarius or all Mercury Sagittarius do this, but to me that kind of makes Sagittarius also have it's a very flippant energy, and it's a very ha 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 ha, you know what I mean? And they're able to giggle and maybe kiki about things that are a little bit more harsh and serious to other people, and that's kind of what I was kind of getting from this vibe. And then also, like I said, Venus in Libra, and then the Mars and Virgo. Like I said, Mars and Virgo was Virgos can be pretty critical and pretty harsh, and so I can kind of see that kind of happening. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about her anymore, to be honest. I really don't. So I'm just gonna kind of move on. Zack. So Zack is an Aries sun, Aries moon, Aries Mercury, Pisces Venus, and Mars. He has so much Aries. What's going on? All of this Aries, like I said, there's so many Aries on this show. To me, that's not as surprising, only because I don't know, like I said, I know it's a stereotype about Aries being impulsive, but I really do feel Aries don't think about the long-term consequences as much. And not that Love is Blind has consequences, but you're literally signing up to be ripped apart to shreds by millions of people weekly, especially the most intimate thing you can have in your life, which is your personal relationships. And I really do feel and maybe, I'm obviously when people ripping them apart, so whatever, but I don't think Aries are thinking about that. They're oh cool, I'm gonna go show my fun love. If I was thinking about, I would be not a bit calculated, but I'd be thinking, on this show about that. And I feel Aries are whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then the Pisces and Venus and Mars, that's just so sweet. The Pisces Venus to him, to me, feels, okay, all the Aries stuff is okay, I can see why you're a lawyer. I can see why, I think even in one of the interviews, Zack said, oh, when I was younger, I used to argue just to argue. And you kind of have to grow out of that. I'm glad that you're a lawyer now, that you were able to use that productively. So arguing just to argue Aries. Okay, Venus, Pisces, and Venus, Mars. That's so cute. I love that. That's just so like romantic and dreamy. Like I said, Pisces is Venus's sign of exaltation. This just proves that he's just such a hopeless romantic, and you can kind of even see that when he was singing that god-awful song or serenade to Irina, and even giving Irina like his little like stuffed animal. Funnily enough, Irina and Zack both have strong Venus placements, but you know, Irina has Venus in Libra and he has Venus in Pisces. I just think that Venus and Pisces takes love a lot more seriously. Even though I said they're both hopeless romantics, Venus and Pisces is like, I want that everlasting love. Like I want us to be in love for centuries. Like when we die, our souls need to entangle. Venus and Libra is like, oh my god, I want like an Instagram boyfriend, like someone who can like take a couple pics with me, like that type of vibe. And so I just feel like Irina wanted someone who was gonna look good in her arm, and she just didn't think Zack was it. Like, I mean, to be honest, beyond that, both Micah and Irina have a nasty spirit. Like Irina just has a nasty spirit. I feel like even if Irina was attracted to Zack, I think it would have went south eventually because, like I said, Irina a nasty person. I don't even want to talk about her anymore, to be honest. So let's just move on. Okay, Bliss. So Bliss actually has a lot of Libra as well. She has a sun in Libra, moon in Libra. Okay, this kind of, and Mars in Libra. This makes sense. Bliss is a pretty girl. Like, let's just call it what it is. She's gorgeous. She has a face for the gods. Like, she is amazing. So, and also she's really sweet. And I really do think her Libra energy, like, I think she's embodying like the better side of Libra in terms of like, she's very diplomatic. Like, even when she was fighting with Irina, like, she literally was the person who was like, hey, I'm going to like, you know, call a truce. Like, that's really the diplomacy of Libra energy. Like, she was the one who was like, okay, I'm gonna be like, okay, come to my worst enemy in this place and we're fighting over the same guy, and like literally be like, hey, no, like we're going to like put our differences aside for the sake of this guy. So I feel like that's really sweet. And she also seems like she has a really nice like personality. She also has Mercury in Virgo. That also makes sense to me because I feel like, I don't know if she's critical, but she just kind of says like small little like smart comments I thought was funny. Like when she talked about how she did not like Josh when he showed up, like I thought that was so funny. And in my head I was, okay, that's like, because she's not afraid of asserting herself and not afraid of just being like, I don't like this person, or I don't like what you did, I don't like this energy. Like even to her dad, she was able to be like, no. Like, and I feel like Mercury and Virgo can definitely have that. Then she also has Venus and Scorpio. This is so cute. Okay, this is so cute. I'm sorry, like, okay. Also, talking about luminaries touching each other, I'm also saying this because I'm mentioning the couples that get married. I think all the ones that got married, like Zack and Bliss, they have their luminaries. This is a little bit more of a harsh energy because, you know, it's funny because they're both new moon babies. Like Zack has his sun and his moon both in Aries, and Bliss has it both in Libra, but Libra and Aries are both opposites. So, and that kind of makes sense in terms of like just the way that they got together, like that, you know, push and pull type of energy. And then even like Zack having to chase or pursue Bliss, like that kind of makes sense because, you know, Aries is ruled by Mars. And then, you know, Mars is usually more of like the aggressor, and then, you know, Venus is ruled, and then Libra is ruled by Venus, which, you know, can be like more of a like a twirling my hair, sitting looking pretty type of energy. Yeah, anyway, but yeah, that push pull, but like I said, opposites really do attract, and while it's not always the most harmonious energy, at least you can see each other, and they have some commonalities, both being cardinal signs. And then also, the sweetest thing about this, Bliss has a Venus in Scorpio, and Zack has a Venus in Pisces. That is trine. Bro, they were ready. They said, we're getting married. Like, just like, they both are romantic in their own ways. And also, Bliss having a Venus in Scorpio makes a lot of sense about why she was questioning whether or not to take Zack back. I think she really was like, and she was giving him a little bit of a hard time because one thing, Venus and Scorpio do not play. Like, they do not want to be played with. They hate the idea of even being played. So I understand her hesitancy and also why she was a little bit slower to like open up or really give her all. But I think Zack's Venus in Pisces is just so sweet and so sentimental and so like just generally a really nice, sweet energy that, you know, I can really see why he, you know, yeah, I can really see why he was able to get her to open up. Zack is such an earnest person. You know, like he's just so honest and so open with everything, which is exactly why I feel like they could get together. All right, that is all for my thoughts about Love is Blind Season 4. I hope you really enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought about the season, and also let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of my astrological analysis. If you're just here for me to, talk mess about these couples and to just talk mess about astrology in general, I'm so glad you're here. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more of this similar type of content. Let me know if there's any shows that you want me to do in a similar type of style, or if you want it to do it more of like when the shows kind of like come out. Like I know The Ultimatum is having a new season called The Ultimatum Queer Love, which, yes, that's all I'm gonna say about that. Yes. Another thing that I will kind of like say or kind of shout out is that if you're looking for any astrological readings, I provide them. My bookings are kind of open a little bit on and off, but Twitter is always usually the best place where you can catch me, and you can also see whether or not my bookings are going to be open or not. But yeah, if you want a reading from me, I offer solar return readings, I offer year ahead readings, and I also offer just a general read of your natal chart. So yeah. Thank you so much, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.